Sensational.
Today we will be covering two of the most discussed and debated games, and those are Ghost of Tsushima and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Some people call them both samurai games, some people say only Ghost of Tsushima is a samurai game, Sekiro really isn't. There's a lot of talk regarding these games since they came out, but one thing is for sure, both of these titles are incredible, truly masterpieces, and you should definitely play them both. I'm gonna say this before I even get into this. Yes, one may appeal to a certain audience more than other, which we'll get to in a minute, but nevertheless they're both incredible. Coming from somebody who's finished Sekiro and still comes back from time to time to fight Genichiro because it's fun, and from somebody who literally started playing Ghost of Tsushima and I already have a few good hours in the game, I can say without a doubt that these games, despite people saying that they're similar to one another, have a lot of differences, which is pretty obvious as well. Of course there is similarities, but Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima are two completely different games. And here's why. Grab your snacks, maybe even something to drink, lay back, and let's get into this. Alright, so first things first, before we get into more detail about each one of these games, I have to say that despite their differences, I still put Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima head to head, mostly because of the fact that they both draw their inspiration from classic samurai films, Japanese films, and of course Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is a way more challenging game in this case if we compare it to Ghost of Tsushima, because it's made by FromSoftware, the guys who made the Dark Souls series, Bloodborne, their newest edition Elden Ring. It can't be easy. It was actually one of the toughest Souls games that I have played so far.
You're trash, kid, get good!
Because compared to the other ones, you can't get a different weapon here, you can't upgrade your build or change your build, unlike Elden Ring for example. So it literally goes by get good or get out, right? The bosses are tough, yet they're super fun to play with. Sekiro has more of a linear type of gameplay from point A to point B with well thought out maps. On the other hand, Ghost of Tsushima is more based on the massive open world Red Dead Redemption 2 type of environment with absolutely stunning visuals, if I might add, but not such unique combat, although one that is way more different from Sekiro, and it still manages to stand out. Now let's talk a little bit about the combat in both of these games. I'm not gonna make this a 20-minute video, so I'll try to keep this short, simple, and interesting for you guys. So if we start with Sekiro, I think it came out in 2019, 18, I'm so sorry, I should have looked it up before I started this video, but I think it's 2019, and it had the best combat from any FromSoftware game that I have played. At least that's my opinion on it. Sekiro's combat is incredibly fast, well polished and precise. The game offered sword fights that make you feel like you're fighting with a dangerous weapon, right? You're not chipping away at the health bar, you're wearing down your opponents or maneuvering to break through their defense. And when you do, you can obviously kill them in literally one strike. And you can even beat bosses really quickly with that move. But the challenge in Sekiro comes from the fact that enemies can do the same to you. And that's what makes Sekiro so hard. The combat in Sekiro is way more linear and simple than in Ghost of Tsushima because you really don't rely on many other things besides your sword. Obviously there's like weapon prosthetics, but all of those feel kind of like an addition to what you've been currently learning, right? I'm not saying you don't have to use them at all, but you can definitely survive with your single katana because in my experience Sekiro rewards perfect timing more than Ghost of Tsushima does. The only thing I didn't like about Sekiro's combat is the fact that it gets a little bit more clunkier when dealing with crowds. I'm not saying it's bad, it's still fine, but I preferred Ghost of Tsushima's combat more in that aspect. Now, speaking of Ghost of Tsushima, on the other hand, here the combat is more traditional. As I mentioned before, it's not as unique as Sekiro's, but it still manages to be innovative in its own way. In Ghost of Tsushima, you can break your opponent's shield or defense, to say so, and that opens them up for a few attacks in which you can either kill them or you can whittle down their health if they're a bigger level. But the thing is, you don't have a defense meter yourself, so it's not like enemies can do the same to you. Although I said this when I played the game to myself, and I'm gonna say it now, Ghost of Tsushima for me is way more enjoyable on more difficult settings. Personally, I'm currently playing it for the first time, and I am on hard just because before I started playing I've read that on harder difficulties opponents tend to attack more relentlessly and mix and match their approach with feints and unblockable attacks. And of course you can parry and counter many of these attacks by dodging. The parrying system is actually beautiful, and obviously the game is newer, so the animations are a little bit better, more realistic, which I've really enjoyed, and that's where the satisfaction comes in. It's really satisfying when you perfectly parry, and Jin, which is the main character in Ghost of Tsushima, just absolutely slices and dices the enemy, or when you perfectly dodge and then counter attack. It's incredibly satisfying as well, but it doesn't punish you as much as Sekiro would if you do miss those perfect times, right? Because Ghost of Tsushima's combat is not as linear. You have smoke bombs you can use, a bow and arrow that is actually not bad, and of course you have so much more stuff. You have techniques that you can learn that are basically like a skill tree. You can upgrade your swords, that helps a lot. And the best thing about Ghost of Tsushima that it's not in Sekiro, stances. Ghost of Tsushima has 4 stances, and each of those stances are tailored to one of 4 enemy types, and all of those attacks in a certain stance are much more effective to a certain enemy. And the simplicity that Ghost of Tsushima made these stances is beautifully tailored with the combat, and it works amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And if I had to pick a winner of the combat mechanics, I don't think I'd be able to, because both of these games make you feel like a true samurai badass, right? In Ghost of Tsushima you become a true menace the more you play, because you level up, you unlock more techniques, you get used to the stances. But in Sekiro you just get better, right? So your skill just becomes better, your reaction time, your timing just gets better, and because you only have one weapon, yes you can get more prosthetics, but that doesn't really contribute to making you a badass. The thing that makes you a badass in Sekiro is absolutely slicing the enemies in like a few seconds because you figured out how to break their stance. So if I wanted a more chill and relaxed type of game that I would enjoy and have a breeze through, I would pick Ghost of Tsushima. If I wanted to sweat and concentrate and I wanted a bigger challenge, I'd pick Sekiro. Now let's talk about the gameplay, exploration, and even stealth in both of these games, because that's where Ghost of Tsushima and Sekiro really differ. Ghost of Tsushima is a way more open world game than Sekiro is. As I mentioned before, it's sort of like a Red Dead Redemption 2. You can ride your horse through sun-swept fields. The visuals are absolutely gorgeous. This is where Ghost of Tsushima really strives in, guys. I'm literally spending like 10 to 15 minutes in my first playthrough just looking at beautiful sunsets. Ghost of Tsushima is a game that mixes brutality and beauty very well. The game is really flexible in this aspect, right? With a massive open world comes a lot more stuff like side missions that aren't really the innovation of side missions. I didn't love them, but I like doing them so far. They're nothing special, right? But they're still fun to do and can give some more background on the side characters' journeys. And of course, while riding your horse through the massive open world of Ghost of Tsushima, maybe not as big as Red Dead Redemption, I still have no idea how big the map is, but it still feels big. And with this open world can come just a lot of random stuff, like you can just meet the random enemies on your way to a main mission. There's a random enemy camps you can clear out, and there are friendly camps as well, like a place where you can get different clothes from somebody, a blacksmith, and so on. Ghost of Tsushima does have a fast travel to some points, but I've literally barely used it. Now Sekiro, on the other hand, like said before, it's way more linear, right? If you're looking to navigate tightly designed levels filled with hidden shortcuts, searching for the way through an area and doing everything you can to stay alive, that is Sekiro for you. Now both of these games have simple stealth systems where you can get the drop on enemies, literally sometimes. You can climb in both games and assassinate your target, although I think Ghost of Tsushima does the parkour aspect a little better. Maybe it's because the game is newer, I don't know, but in my opinion it did the climbing up and climbing down thing a little more smooth. Generally speaking, regarding gameplay, stealth, and exploration, the world of Ghost of Tsushima allows for more flexibility, but the levels of Sekiro are crafted well enough to allow for plenty of avenues of approach. Both of these games transition really well from stealth to combat if and when you get spotted. But in my opinion, if I did have to pick a winner here, I would pick Ghost of Tsushima regarding exploration, gameplay, and stealth. This is all based on my opinion and my experience with the game. I absolutely loved how Sekiro was paced, but it's more preference based, and I love a good open world game, especially with stunning graphics. I'm not somebody who likes to complete 100% template every game I play, but I do like to venture out out in side missions, and those mythic side missions in Ghost of Tsushima are incredible to do, and I absolutely love them. And last but not least, we have to talk about accessibility, storytelling, and settings, and all of the, more technical stuff, but at the same time venture out into the story a little bit as well. I think in this domain, both of these games get points. You can change the subtitles, I think, in both Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima, and like make the games in Japanese or in English. I'm like 99% sure you can do that in both. Some of this video is done by memory, but to refresh my memory, I actually did grab some of the info you heard in this video from a website. Shout out to cnnet.com and shout out to Andrew Gebhardt for all the info. He's got an article on the internet if you do want to check it out. But as I mentioned, in both of these games, you can change the subtitles and voices to be in Japanese or in English. But a bonus in Ghost of Tsushima are obviously the difficulty settings. You can go from easy, normal, hard, and there's another full-on black and white Japanese old school movie type of difficulty. It's literally fully black and white, and it's obviously way more challenging, and it's fully Japanese, and I think that's really cool. But the best thing about Ghost of Tsushima accessibility settings is that the difficulty options don't work like in other games. Most games turn enemies into damage sponges on higher settings, so it takes like a hot minute to kill them, but in Ghost of Tsushima, the health on the enemies on higher difficulties does not change. You're just as deadly with Jin at higher difficulties. The thing that does change though is the enemy's aggressiveness. They hit harder, and the timing needed to counter enemies' moves is stricter, which I think is really cool, and part of the reason I found hard difficulty not hard at all. Pause.
What did he say?
Y'all gotta remember, your boy's coming from FromSoftware games, so Ghost of Tsushima won't be as challenging, but it's still hard difficulty, and for somebody who's not the best at video games, I'd say I'm doing fairly well for myself.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now! Stop the cap!
Regarding Sekiro, Sekiro does not have difficulty options, like any other Souls game. Why? Because it's perfectly balanced the way it is. Part of the experience, part of the Sekiro magic, is patiently learning what the game is trying to teach you. You don't have to be a professional gamer to beat Sekiro, you just have to be willing to learn. And regarding the story, Sekiro, again, as other Souls games, leave it on the vague side. It's way better than other Souls games though. Like if you compare it to even Elden Ring, they give you a lot more to work with in Sekiro regarding story. And I was actually pretty invested in the wolf story and some of the other bosses you fight, right? But generally speaking, Sekiro W story, although compared to Ghost of Tsushima, I love the story in Ghost of Tsushima so far. And it's only normal that a game like Ghost of Tsushima would have better story than Sekiro. It's not that Sekiro's main focus is on story, it's that Ghost of Tsushima thrives in that, right? Games like that need to have a good story, otherwise they're not good games. Generally speaking, Ghost of Tsushima has a very compelling story, very interesting villain arcs, and to put an end to this discussion, I'd say that Sekiro's story was great enough to keep me going and keep me interesting just because I love the game's combat and mechanics. But Ghost of Tsushima's story so far is making me be at the edge of my seat, if I could say so. To sum everything up, I doubt there is a winner. I know this is like the typical answer you'd expect, but look.
Boring.
These two are incredible games. I was not prepared for Ghost of Tsushima to be as good as Sekiro, but it wasn't worse. You know, in some aspects, some game is better, in other aspects, another one is better, and I think it comes down to your preference. And let me know in the comments down below, where do you stand at? Do you like Sekiro more? Do you like Ghost of Tsushima more? Have you played any? Let me know where you stand at with these games. And if you did enjoy this video, feel free to hit that like button. It helps out a lot and it means a lot to me. And if you're new here and want to keep in touch, press subscribe as well so you never miss another upload. We stream every Saturday and Sunday here on YouTube as well, both FromSoftware games like Elden Ring, we're doing our second playthrough of Elden Ring now, and Ghost of Tsushima. Thank you so much for watching till the end of this video. Have a good rest of the day.